So my name's Catherine. My brand right now is 90 Days in My Shoes. So really the concept of that was sharing my personal journey and finding out where the heck I was going to be. So I'm going to take you way back. This is Chicken Soup for the Teenage Soul. So I just took a little excerpt from it. It's an inspirational true story about ordinary people having extraordinary experiences. And what's unique about that is that was the very first publication. I was 13 years old. I submitted a poem, had no idea where that was going to do. It seemed like the cool thing to do, but as I look back now with a much different perspective, where that started to where I am now will all kind of come full circle, if that makes sense. So this stat is from now, 2017. Pregnancy in the teen years can be a significant of other social. You can read all that. I don't want to read all the slides, but I found myself pregnant at 15. So probably not where I thought I was going from publishing in Chicken Soup for the Teenage Soul to be like an inspirational story. And you know, everyone kind of has these preconceptions of you must have come from a bad home or you must have had, you know, whatever. I came from a European Catholic household. Both my parents are still together to this day. It was just, I had everything but wanted more. Nothing was enough. So why I share this piece is when I was pregnant, no one was excited, including myself. It was more shock than surprise or anything else. And every single day when I lived at home, my mom would come to my bedroom door and she would post these different statistics on my bedroom door. And it was teenage moms don't graduate, teenage moms don't go on to be basically fulfilling every stat that's listed on here. And what's interesting though is everyone's kind of like, oh my gosh, that was awful. And it wasn't though, because if you understood some of the dynamics, the reason was empowerment and the reason was you need to defy all odds. Don't be one of those statistics. So I went on from there. I had my son when I was 16. I continued in high school, sort of. It's really hard when you have a newborn. Not everybody understands that you're late for class because you had to drop your son at daycare. In any event, I found myself in a cooperative learning program when I was 17 years old, and my placement was at the courts in Scarborough. So I spent 2 months at the courts, just being a gopher. But the day I turned 18, they hired me full time. So you can imagine at 18, I was making $30-something an hour, and 19 years ago, that was kind of a big deal. And I quickly found that I was on the wrong side of the bench, not because I wanted to be a criminal on that side of the bench, but I found that it was so much more in me to help people versus putting people away. Because what was I doing? I mean, you were listening to sometimes, awful testimony, but powerful testimony, and people were getting locked up that you personally didn't think they did it, and it was just like this hot mess, and it's not where I wanted to be. And that's where I really developed sort of the understanding of having a mentor. And there was a woman there, I'd been there 3 years, and she looked at me and she says, Catherine, you have to get out. You need to go back to school. You need to do something with your life. You're better than this. You're never gonna make more than, at the time, $52 an hour or something like that, and you're gonna be stuck, which, yeah, big deal. But, having said that, I was 20 at the time. So this is what my life was gonna be like for the next 45 years. So I went back to school. I didn't graduate. I'm 2.5 credits short of my high school graduation, but I did apply as a mature student and was accepted for my social work degree. So I did that part-time while I was trying to figure out, I couldn't just quit and go to school. I was a mom. So in any event, allow your passion to become your purpose and it'll one day become your profession. And that was really true for me at that time, and it's true for me again, full circle. So I was doing my social work degree. I was still working at the court, and I was thinking, this is not what I want to do with the rest of my life. What do I want to do? So I looked up every residential youth care facility in the Greater Toronto area, and I applied to all of them. So there was probably, I don't know, at the time over 100. One agency called me back. I spent 11 years in that agency as a child and youth worker, working in residential with child welfare. And then I went on to work in the school system with the same agency. And my classroom was basically full of all the kids that nobody wanted to work with, and I resonated with that because I was one of those kids. Having said that, the kids I worked with were involved in gang violence, prostitution, mental health, a variety of very different things, but I believe that I went through that to understand what I had to go through. I believe that everything that we're going through right now is leading us up to something else. So after spending 11 years with that agency, I was forced on medical leave for some medical conditions, and while on medical leave, I decided I wasn't going back, because ain't nobody in social work for the money, believe me. And, I'd met someone, and I really looked up to him, and I thought, wow, like, he's just crushing it. Like, I want to make money like that again. I'm tired of living paycheck to 2 days before payday. And I thought, well, let's just quit social work over a bottle of wine with a friend of mine, and we're going to go be insurance agents. So, September 8th, 2015, I quit my job. September 14th, 2015, I woke up paralyzed from the waist down. So, I had emergency spinal surgery a few days later. I spent just over a month in hospital learning to walk again. I'm walking. Another 3 months really just trying to walk without, contraptions and devices. And then I thought, all right, universe, I heard you. I'm not going to be an insurance agent. So what the heck am I going to do? In January 2016, I applied to be a contributor with Huffington Post, and I've been writing with them since, and really decided that writing was really my passion, which is why I started with sharing the chicken soup with the teenage soul. Because even though I'd been journaling, and you always become that person of, hey, can you read my story, or can you edit this? And so that was my disaster at the time. Having said that, during that recovery of, the moment you have to, everyone talks about kind of near-death experiences and what ends up happening to you and how the light flashes before your eyes. And I didn't necessarily have any of those moments, but I really started reflecting on what the heck was I going to do with my life. Because it didn't just happen in the snap of a finger. It's like, hey, I'm going to go be a writer now for the rest of my life. But I read this book by a mentor of mine who really stood by me through the process, and it's The Power of Now. And if you haven't read it and you're looking for something a little bit deeper and appreciating the now and the moment, read it. It's amazing. So this is one of my favorite quotes from them. Realize deeply that the present moment is all you have, and make the now your primary focus of your life. And that's what I started doing. And people talk about, you hear a lot of entrepreneurs or motivational speakers and things like that talk about sort of this breakthrough moment. And for me, it wasn't signing that consent of 50-50 you're going to walk again. And it wasn't even you're going to spend the next 5 weeks in the spine unit. And it wasn't, your life is never physically going to be the same. But I was sitting outside, it was a November morning, it was cold, but it was sunny, and I heard these birds that usually drive me crazy, and the sun was beating, and it was just like something that would have annoyed me otherwise. And I started crying, and I realized I could have missed all of this. And it might sound kind of like hokey or whatever, but from that very moment was when I decided that things were gonna change, and I was gonna get back to that moment and being present. And how many times do you go out for coffee with someone? I do this a lot because I do a lot of networking, and they're on their phone. And you're like, hi, like I'm taking an hour out of my day or half an hour of my day to spend with you. Could you do the same courtesy? So throughout that journey, when I decided I wasn't gonna be this wonderful insurance agent anymore, and I really started dialing down into what I was good at and really focusing on my strengths versus what I couldn't do. I knew I was a great writer. What was that going to do? I knew I was really great at SEO, like you had mentioned. So I started blogging for people, and next thing, blogs turned into press releases, and press releases turned into speakers profiles, and speakers profiles it's just blown up. But what I realized in that process is when your vision gets a hold, it's a little bit backwards from here, but when you tighten in on that vision, you're going to lose people, but you're losing the right people. Because the people that are meant to stay, and again, I'm not trying to be hokey, but the people that are meant to stay will stay. And Gary Vaynerchuk, who gonna wear a shirt, but then I saw Lucas's shirt, and I was like, man, I should have worn his shirt. Because he's a little bit raw, and if you haven't heard of him and you're okay with some swear words, then Gary is the man. And in any event, one of his biggest things is pay attention to what people care about and reverse engineer it. And that's really what I've done with my business is not just, hey, I'm good at this, let's throw it out and hopefully make some money, but it started becoming, what do people want? And that is my contact information. And that's pretty much it, unless you need this.